The Ensemble podcast is intended for professional financial advisors. All discussion is limited to publicly available information and should not be interpreted as legal, professional, or financial advice. Ensemble does not hold an AFS license nor provide any financial services. Before making investment decisions, you should obtain financial advice from a qualified financial advisor.
Hey guys, it's Ben Nash here. I'm one of the co-founders at Ensemble and founder of financial advice company Pivot Wealth, which is my business baby I started from scratch a little bit over 7 years ago. In that time, I've leveraged some of the learnings of the Ensemble community to scale the business to become one of the better known financial advice companies for high income accumulators in Australia. And through this podcast, you can join me each Tuesday as I have the absolute privilege of interviewing some amazing people where I'm going to selfishly be able to learn and continue my journey to improve every area of my advice business. Hopefully you can learn a few things on that journey as well. Jump over to ensemble.com, and if you haven't already signed up, to learn and share from others, or simply download the app.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by NetWealth. Imagine a world where you can offer clients access to local and international investments. A world where you can engage with clients meaningfully, backed by powerful data and insights with mobile-friendly technology. A world where you can build business efficiencies through scaled managed accounts and bulk reporting. And a world where you can get all the latest news, research and insights to spot the changes that really matter. Wealth is more than just money. It's about opportunity and progress. A world of opportunity awaits you at netwealth.com.au/woo.
Hey guys, Ben Nash from the Ensemble team, and today I'm here with Dan Testa. Dan is a senior advisor at Tribeca Financial. Keen to pick Dan's brain on, I suppose, his journey and advice, but specifically around the focus that they have with clients, some of the lessons and challenges over the last little bit. Dan, mate, great to have you here.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.
I thought a good place to start is maybe just talking through your advice journey and how you've ended up where you are today.
Always a good start. For me, I was at Westpac BT for a number of years, close to 10, and then found my way out of the BT advice world into, I guess, my own little thing with a group of other advisors, which was probably a bit of a false start for me to go out on my own. And then COVID hit and ended up taking a bit of a break there. And lo and behold, spent a bit of time reflecting on career, what to do, staying in advice or not, and ended up spending a bit of time talking to Ryan, our CEO at Tribeca, and understanding what their process was around financial advice and what has now become my process around giving financial advice, which is a really strong focus on care, client care and financial wellbeing. And I've been there ever since, till 2020.
It's interesting. I've spoken to a few other advisors on the podcast that, not massively dissimilar journey that started out generally at some of the bigger institutions or in bigger businesses, and then, decide that they want to try doing their own thing and running their own show, and then realize that it wasn't, the ideal setup for them. How did that sort of come together from you, and what was the key, I suppose, driver of making the call there?
Yeah, well, I guess for me, I think it was just the wrong time. There's a lot going on personally in my life as well, professionally, going out from the beautiful confines of working in a big business like the bank, and then heading into your own sort of world. It does come with its challenges, and I must say that I wasn't prepared for those challenges at the time. And that gave me a lot of really good learnings, which I take into, I guess, today's world and how I carry myself personally, also professionally. And that also comes in, through the advice that I give, the client care, going that extra mile, but also, the mental health challenges that I faced back then, and, having a really strong emphasis on that mental health care and that client care that's so important.
Totally. I being a business owner and someone that's been hiring for advisors specifically heavily last year, took a bit of a break. Now we are looking for advisors again. I love talking to people that have either worked in a role that's in a small business where they have a really close connection to, you know, the whole flow of work and how it all fits together, or that have worked for themselves before, because I feel like it does really give you a completely different perspective on all of the things that sit behind the scenes. And I know for me, like when I started my business, I had no idea about all of the million things that you actually just sort of take a little bit for granted, or just don't really think about, that somebody actually needs to do that, or someone needs to be the one that sets up an email signature, or figure out what links go where and how this thing links to this other thing, and what do you do, you know, for the privacy policy on your website, and all of this stuff. So I love seeing that lens, but yeah, it is obviously a lot there, and I think particularly through the last couple of COVID disrupted years, you know, it's another dimension to the challenge there. But you touched on mental health, and I know that that's something that you guys have a heavy focus on financial well-being and how that ties to overall well-being with your work with clients. But I also know that you're passionate about advisor mental health and, you know, involved in a number of initiatives. Can you tell us about how that came about and what it is that you're doing in that space?
Yeah, Ben, that's definitely a passion of mine. For those who, I guess, connect with me on LinkedIn and follow me, and my mantra is making the world a happier place for as many people as possible. It's kind of a daily thing, starting with myself. You know, we all have mental health, whether it be a good relationship or bad relationship with mental health. And I think, you know, we're really privileged as financial advisors to work with clients who are going through their own challenges, and that shines through. You know, we get a lot of information downloaded on us. A lot of the time when we're diving really deep, we're going into, you know, uncharted territory that could bring up some things for them, especially, I mean, our process working with, you know, behaviors and money scripts and stories that have, you know, been inbuilt into someone since their, you know, childhood. So it does bring up a lot of stuff. And coming back to it, that play on mental health, especially, you know, the link between health and money, they're so intrinsically linked and so powerful. I think, you know, it's a strong case for us being up there with doctors and medical professionals in how we conduct ourselves, especially when it comes to, I guess, being like a GP for money, knowing where we need to take the conversation and where we can't go, but obviously making sure that we at the heart of it are asking that next question, because that can be uncovering a lot that can impact the advice that we're giving. And that mental health side of things, it sort of comes back to what you do in your own world and how you take care of yourself, how the conversations that you can have with others around you, and especially in the advice community with all the changes that have happened, not just through COVID, but since the Royal Commission. People who have, you know, lost livelihoods and businesses, or had to make, you know, big decisions to get further educated to stay in the industry, or others that have made, you know, quicker exits. You know, doesn't mean they're bad advisors. It just means that, you know, there's more care needed for those that are going through hard times from a business perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd still remember, like, when I first started working with younger people in particular, that it blew me away how many of them came up with mental health history in going through. One of the areas where obviously you touch on this a bit with clients is around getting insurance covers in place. And, you know, people talk about mental health and you see some of these statistics out there, but it wasn't really until I started working with people, helping them set up insurances, that I realized that for younger people in particular, that I would think that I never looked at the actual full-on statistics around this, but I would say with our client group, it would be somewhere around at least 50% of them had some sort of history of mental health at some point, whether they've spoken to their GP about stress or anxiety or depression or something like that. And I think you're absolutely right that it's definitely so closely linked with how people are doing financially, what's going on in their careers, and those two are linked as well. And then that flows through to their lifestyle, how they live as well. And I love what you guys do. I'm on your email list and see the stuff that comes out with that focus on well-being. Like you, I feel incredibly privileged to be able to help people solve some of these problems, to alleviate some of that stress and pressure that can come around money. And I think it's great to see the industry moving in that direction. I think that getting, as you say, being held to the same sorts of standards as other professionals in this space, given how critical that responsibility is something that probably makes a lot of sense. Tell us, Dan, how do you guys focus on that? Like practically, how do you focus on it through the advice process?
Yes, good question, Ben. We've got a tool called the Financial Wellbeing Matrix that our broader advice business and investment committee and a range of people have sort of come together and in that advice process have actually said, hey, what do we need to do to uncover people's relationships with money, and a big focus on helping people improve that. So the Financial Wellbeing Matrix helps understand, first of all, what it is, what financial well-being is. So it helps to explore, the relationship between security and freedom of choice, which are two of the key, probably the most important emotions that one feels when it comes to explaining, what finance is all about or what money means to them. So then we break it down into 4 separate sort of sections and say, okay, well, let's look at now in the present time and focus on security and freedom of choice. So in the security area, we speak about control of money. So what comes in, what goes out, and we get them to score themselves in all of the 4 quadrants, score out of 1 to 10. 10 being nothing needs to change, I feel perfectly fine. And 1 being white flag is up and this is a catastrophe and we need some help. We focus then on the freedom of choice and how they use their money now. Are they allowing themselves the ability to, fall into those bad behaviors of, Uber Eats and going out more often, spending, discretionarily on things that maybe they don't need to or they shouldn't, given cost of living is increased. These types of things do weigh heavily into what's happening in their sort of hip pocket on a month-to-month basis or week-to-week basis. Totally. And then we take it into the future and we look at that security measure, focusing very much on their capacity to absorb financial shock. So if it is someone who's really worried about money now, can only imagine how they're going to feel about their financial position if we, took it a couple of years down the track. What keeps them up at night, and what's going to continue to do so. And that could be as simple as having the rainy day funds and having a strategy to put some cash aside to have a safety net, all the way through to that insurance analysis of, do you have the right cover in place to protect your income if something happens to you, if you have a mortgage that's now costing a lot more, what are the provisions that you have in place? And then that freedom of choice in the future is, what are your goals? How have you actually defined these, and where can we get involved to help really articulate them and start working towards them?
I love that because I sort of nerd out on the money psychology side of things. And when I was doing the research for my first book, I found that they're one of the big challenges when it comes to financial planning generally is that people really struggle to identify with their future self. Like, how are they going to feel? What are they going to want? What's going to be important to them? And, being good with your money is really about prioritizing what your future self is going to want and need, and potentially, saying no to a couple more things today so that you can say yes to a few more things in the future. But because we do struggle to really identify with that future person, then we don't make as good a financial decision. So I think anything that we can be doing to get people to really step into the feelings around that is only going to help with making better decisions around the dollars and cents, but ultimately contributing to the well-being as well. So I love that. I love the way that you guys get people to lean in to that. How is that a relatively new thing that you guys are doing, or like what's sort of been the evolution there?
Yeah, well, I joined the business when the Financial Wellbeing Matrix was really, getting up its head of steam. Ryan and the business could certainly answer those questions as to what they felt was the right change in terms of the brand and the shift that Tribeca went through, given that it's 13 plus year business now, and Ryan has grown this business progressively since he was an advisor and on the tools himself, and now works sort of on the business rather than in the business from that perspective. Going back to your earlier comments about business ownership and all the challenges that are faced, but from that perspective, I came in at a really good time because it's when we were really defining how this was going to be, I guess, not just taken as a client tool, but then also taken to the world of general advice and potentially providing information to employers, employees. And one of the, I guess, passion projects that I'm involved heavily in is very much doing a lot more workplace presentations and speaking to people on education around finance. Because financial literacy is so important, even if they're not ideal advice clients. It's really about making sure that the conversation and the information that is out there is accurate. And it's coming from a professional source, not from a TikTok video or something that does come, with an unlicensed approach, which is something that for us, I know we've got a lot of good advisors that do great work in the social media space, including yourself. But there's a lot of unsolicited information that's out there. And if you're out there educating someone based on what they're hearing from an uneducated source, that's going to be dangerous. And financial literacy, as we all know, is so important, especially in times such as now.
I was about to say this. Don't go knocking a good TikTok video because they can be helpful. But no, I get where you're coming from in that there is a lot of noise out there, and there's also some of the stuff that you just see and shake your head. Like some of it is conflicted and dodgy, but some of it is just dumb and wrong. And it's no wonder people end up confused. But I think that there's obviously a lot that we do when you take on a full financial planning client that sort of necessitates a level of education to get people to making good decisions and confident decisions and actually taking action. But there's also so much that people can do for people to just get on the journey as well. And I think the more I think about it and the more I get into content around this, that money is like a muscle that you build over time. And I think it can be really intimidating, or often is really intimidating. People think that they need to be an expert from day one, but they don't need to be an expert from day one. They just need to take the next step. They just need to, set up that savings account or set up the budget or, get started with their investing. And that's where I think those, the broader education pieces are so crucial to help people that aren't the right clients for full-on financial advice to put themselves on a path so that they can get to that point. And I think it's really great to see that there is more of that stuff coming through to push people along the journey. And we're sort of setting up the future clients of all of our businesses and the industry overall as well. So I love seeing that out there. Tell us then, and it's sort of related, but a little bit off topic as well, that tell us about the Male Hub project. What's that about?
So outside of financial advice world, one of the sort of things that I picked up over COVID, I was actually fortunate enough to be introduced to this project that started during COVID, or actually just before, and was just reached out to the CEO, Tony, and had a conversation via LinkedIn and said, hey, I'd love to get involved in something like this. This is my, story, for want of a better term, and something that I think I could certainly help in spreading the word and giving back and being part of the buddy program and being a support person for whomever is out there needing someone to talk to. And that's really what the Male Hub project was all about. It's really the demographic of, a corporate male, and then just thinking about in that world where I previously came from, how isolating that can be, how that can also be very dangerous for some people that don't want to talk about things within that environment because they maybe feel that job security is an issue. And if it's not just about men, but it is, because at the same time, there's so many females and other partners that are out there that are impacted, and whether it be, grandparents, daughters, whoever it is, they're impacting the lives of many. And having a healthy male relationship in your life and having the ability to talk about problems, concerns that come up, whether they be great or small, is the reason why the organization exists. And that was just something that, for me, I wanted to bring to the advice world. I actually saw it as a great opportunity because I was involved in so many situations in the corporate world that I thought, you know what, we need to get together and be able to talk about this, and talk about the challenges that are faced or how people are feeling. And just look at the suicide rates of men compared to women over the history of as long as statistics have been recorded. It's been really high. In fact, one of the statistics that jumped out in the mental health first aid training that I'd completed in the last 12 months, the only time it was actually a lot lower was at periods of war, because men were off onto the battlefield, and that's when the statistics dropped away. But it's always been a stark contrast to where that actually sits. But it's important to talk about it across all levels. It's not just male specific. It's just that we don't talk.
Yeah. And I think that particularly, like touched on the last couple of years, COVID disruption, throw in the mix, the need for a whole industry to pivot to working from our COVID bunkers and dealing with the crazy amount of demand for advice when markets, huge market opportunity with the share market meltdown, property record low interest rates. A lot of advisors are sort of off their feet keeping up with that, as well as trying to manage the change to their lives and trying to manage the change to their work and trying to manage all of this legislative change at the same time. And I know from talking to a bunch of advisor mates, and for myself included, that super challenging time to deal with all of that stuff. I know for me, like, locked in the COVID bunker, trying to deal with business, having all that business uncertainty, managing a team, all of those sorts of things that, it took its toll, and it sort of took a bit of a lot of focus to figure out what the new, normal was, how to deal with that, try to bake some routines into my life so that I could manage those things and do it in a way where I could still, be a human being, be a partner, be a dad, as well. I've built in a couple of things that I think have worked well. I certainly reacted not in the right way in the first lot of lockdown, where, not exercising, not looking up nutrition, not managing alcohol consumption the way that you're probably supposed to, at least I think so. So I'm interested to hear from you. Like, what are some of the rituals or routines that you put in place to help you with that stuff?
Yeah, look, and I think you hit the nail on the head there with COVID. A lot of the good behaviors and good practices went out the door. And I guess this is, something I don't want to be preaching, but it's just some of the simplest of things. We talk about it all the time in how we operate in the business. It's really all about education, and what we can do to educate ourselves on the reasons why we don't talk and those types of things. But first and foremost, having a good conversation with your connected people. If you're feeling really crap, pick up the phone, talk to those people that are closest to you, or, get out and go for a walk. We practice, taking our meds, and that's not medication. That's focusing on the M, E, D, and the S, the meditation or mindfulness, and getting yourself centered. It's focusing even just the simplest of things, like on your breathing, and controlling your environment and taking some time out to meditate. Exercise, as you sort of started to allude to, you didn't move as much through COVID, but we're able to have a little bubble. What's your exercise routine like? Even if it's just as simple as getting out and going for a 10, 15, 20-minute walk a couple of times a day, just to have a break, get up off your feet. Standing desks, one of the greatest inventions going around, just to keep you moving and keep you up on your, from sitting. Diet, self-explanatory. Most of the time, the age-old saying, you can't out-train a bad diet, or having a really good diet to start off with is 80% of the work for what you put in your body and what you're consuming. And then most important, our sleep. Sleep is one of the most important things, in fact, the most in managing our mental health and getting a really good night's sleep. Sleep hygiene. I was having panic attacks through COVID. Sleep hygiene was something that I explored and experienced really great effects with. Just feeling this overall sense of calm when you stop doing things like having coffee from 12 o'clock onwards. The impacts to that caffeine later on in the evening are profound. Just devices, getting rid of technology, switching off, and it's really easier said than done when you're running a business and dealing with clients in such volatile times. But it's about setting those boundaries and those expectations. And again, going back to education, educating your clients on what's acceptable and what's not, what the expectations of that relationship look like, and also giving them some of that, this is what I actually practice. And sometimes that can also help them.
Absolutely. And I think, like money, with this sort of stuff, that it can be really overwhelming, that there's, and like a lot of the things that you mentioned there, that it's sort of talked about. It's something that maybe we don't talk about as much as we should, but certainly people are increasingly aware, or at least I am, that, you should be sleeping, you need to watch your nutrition, you have to exercise, all of those sorts of things. But I know in the past, it's like you feel like you have to do it all and do it all straight away. But I think with a lot of these things, that you just need to do something, like do one thing, and then you've got one habit that you can build in, and then you can build on that and add something in, or try and do a bit of habit stacking, or whatever. That you don't need to be a financial expert tomorrow. You don't need to be a mental health expert tomorrow either, or a mental, Zen Buddhist monk thing. Or it's like just be a bit better with your nutrition or your sleep or whatever. But I know for me personally, I was fortunate that through our business coaching community, one of the people that was in that community is like a breathing coach and breath coach. And for me, awesome. I'd never heard of that stuff before, but got some exposure to that. And it's a total lifesaver through COVID, and I still continue it to this day, every day, like doing some breathing exercises, that you take a few minutes out. It sort of is a bit of habit stacking that forces you to 5 minutes, not being looking at emails or looking at a computer screen or, dealing with a screaming kid or screaming partner or whatever. Just to sort of, give you that little bit of Zen time. For me, that was one of the real sort of catalysts that got things started. And then from there, you can sort of add things in over time. But I think it's all, thankfully, there's a lot more information out there about things that you can do to make it easier. But it's so great to see that stuff. And I think particularly as advisors in the advice community, something that we could always do a little bit more of as well.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the one thing, I guess, from a, advisor care point of view, and I guess spreading the word to the, XY Ensemble community, making sure that, there's communication out there. So, my LinkedIn, phone, all those types of things, they're all available and on for anyone who ever needs to chat. So anyone listening out there, male or female, whoever they are, whatever they're going through, pick up the phone, send an email, reach out. Happy to have a conversation and just talk, which is so important. It's great for the networking. It's also great for connecting and understanding different perspectives. But most importantly, sometimes that problem shared is a problem halved, and it can be something that's so simple that just needs to be spoken about. You talk about, all of the things that you can do, and the habit stacking and all of those great things. Sometimes it's just that simplicity of, making a simple decision has a profound impact. And it's all those little things like, exercise, diet and sleep we get spoken about throughout our lives as we're kids growing up and through high school and all the way through our adulthood. It's the first thing doctors go to. How much sleep are you getting? What sort of diet do you have? Are you getting enough exercise? These are kind of three things that are in our control. The meditation side of thing is really important, but it's kind of the added thing, and breathing. I mean, without it, we're not here, right?
Yeah. That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's that, particularly with that one, it's something so simple, but you just don't think about it. But it is just, it does change the game. So,
yeah.
Mate, changing gears a little bit, what are you focused on today? Like what's coming up for you?
Yeah. So today, just getting set for a couple of presentations. We've got a couple of clients that we've engaged in some advice late last year. So I've got a meeting soon after this conversation with that person to present some advice, which is exciting. Also on standby, my wife's about to give birth to our first little one. So the little princess is in the oven cooking away, and due date is only about a week and a half away. So certainly on standby for any changes in what could potentially happen. And then having a couple of review meetings with clients, just making sure we check in, setting some goals for the year ahead. So it's a really, really exciting time. Ben, how about yourself? What's on the agenda?
Well, it's Mondays are always a full day for me. With we do all of our team stuff on Mondays, and I tend to squeeze in a conversation like this one. But for us, a big focus as a business is working on our conversion, and so we were having a little bit of a chat offline, but making sure that we're converting the ideal clients into our business. So I think like us, like a lot of advice businesses out there today, we're getting more and more inquiries coming in from people that maybe heard a bit more about financial advice or have seen stuff online about advice and wondering if it is right for you or for them. And we're sort of trying to get a little bit tighter on how we screen to make sure that we're helping and educating people that maybe aren't right for advice today, but putting them on the journey to be, there for the future. But for the ones that are, that making sure that we're getting really clear on, what they should expect, where the value is going to be, and setting those expectations the right way for the start. So it sets up the whole process for success. I think us, I know that you guys are really great at this as well, that sort of realize that you can't be all things to all people. And there's so many great advice businesses out there that we know that if we're not the right fit for someone that's looking for help, that there's going to be another business that is. It's just about finding that right fit. And we'd rather spend our time working with people that are the ideal fit, because we know that it's going to be, half as much work, or maybe maybe quarter as much work as trying to squeeze someone in that's not the ideal match. We'd much rather sort of connect them with someone that can help with exactly what they're looking for, if that makes sense.
So true. So true.
What's my last question for you? And I could sort of shoot the breeze on that one all day, but if you were to go back to your, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed self starting out in the advice industry and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
That's a tough one. But starting out, I probably would have left the bank environment a lot sooner. I had a couple of opportunities with smaller practices to go out and get more involved in a smaller business and the growth of that business earlier. But security, freedom of choice, lifestyle goals, all the things that were happening at that time didn't afford that. And if I was to go back, I would have relished that opportunity a lot sooner in my career.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I know I got my start in a bigger business as well, and it is scary when you be considering taking that leap, particularly if it's what you've known that there's all this uncertainty, and we tend to in that you can sort of stick to what's safe in that as well. But I love talking to people that's particularly going into smaller businesses, and you see how much of an impact they can have like directly as opposed to just being part of a massive machine. So that's so great to see. But mate, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I feel like for the next conversation that we have, we can focus on, how to master the juggle between first-time parent and, work, business, advice, family, and all of that sort of stuff. But I suppose that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah, definitely, Ben.
But mate, good luck with that. And thank you again. Really appreciate the insights.
No, thanks for your time. Thanks for having me, and look forward to our next chat.